Hello! In this video, I'm going to recap the 3 games I've had with the same person and explain why I think Battle Aces benefits so much from having a best of 3 option as default for ranked. So I'm up against a player called Attrition here. Attrition is running the Wasp Gunbot. Looking at the deck, he probably enjoys a defensive playstyle and slow pushing out with Mortar or Falcons, depending on whatever he feels counters my tech choice. On the other hand, I am playing the Battle Aces version of a Baneling Bust. I basically quickly get my Foundry up, use my Wasps to get as much pickoffs as possible, and inflict game-ending damage on their army or economy with a Bomber King Crab push. On game 1, Attrition uses the Wasps to scout my army and mass his Gunbots for defense. I notice his Gunbots are pushed up too far out of position and move in with my Wasps to get a full surround. However, the low numbers of my Southern Wasps as well as reinforcements mean that I actually lose out on this trade and back off to regroup. Attrition also realizes this and opts to take a third base. This proves to be one base too many as his units are spread too thin and my bombers quickly dispatched him. With no critical mass to threaten my crabs, he taps out. On game 2, Attrition recognizes my strategy from the quick Foundry first, but instead of spending his initial resource on Gunbots, he opts for Wasps. This makes it harder for my Wasps to play aggressive and jump on the Gunbots once he adds them later. Perhaps even more importantly, Attrition takes his tech as soon as he feels safe with his positioning, whereas on game 1, he took a third base. On the other hand, I deem it too difficult to engage the Wasp Gunbot comp with my pure Wasp for now. So instead of spending more materials on Wasps, I bank money and opt to hit my opponent with a stronger follow-up with my tier 2. My first 2 bomber hits are good, and I am able to decimate the remainder of his army. But I don't hit enough of the economy in time, and the Falcons are able to come in and start cleaning up my army. Underestimating my enemy's economy and the strength of Falcons, I start making Blink Hunters, my tier 1 anti-air off of one base. But this proves to be too slow to accumulate, and eventually Attrition is able to mass enough Falcons to protect both his bases from my run-bys and move out to kill me with the support of Wasps. A few games later, I meet Attrition for the 3rd time for the game to decide it all. This time, I'm a little more passive with my initial Wasps, but aggressively spend my resources to build more. This is because I realize that it doesn't matter if I bank materials as the bottleneck here is energy, so I may as well be putting more pressure on with as many Wasps as we can. As a result, I have 32 Wasps in game 3 at the 50-second mark compared to 18 in game 1 where I took a bad trade and 18 in game 2 where I banked money for a stronger follow-up. More Wasps on the field let me have a respectable harass on both the west and the south. After picking off a few units on the southern front, I decide I can overwhelm the existing Gunbot, so I launch an all-out attack. With not enough enemy Wasps on the front line, my southern group of units are able to collapse on the Gunbots and massacre them. But despite the great trades, the end result of my bust isn't too different. Attrition's Falcons start appearing around the same time as game 2 where I lost. I still have the similar amount of crabs working on its main mineral patches, and my follow-up forces are not going to be enough to engage the Falcons directly. The difference this time is that my follow-ups are crabs instead of 4 bombers, and I am able to take out the enemy's mineral line completely with these crabs. Also, instead of spending all my energy on rallying Blink Hunters piece by piece, I take my own expansion. After my expansion, I keep building Wasps. I need to continue dealing economic damage and buy whatever time I can so that I have enough defense against my opponent's Falcon army. My first run-by does admirably well and was probably critical to me closing out the game. On my follow-up, I note that my opponent has created a sizable Falcon force, so I pull back my second run-by away for a potential backstab, and also to abuse the Falcon's slow speed. As I zip past the Falcon fleet in the middle of the map, I notice that the Falcon army has split aggro, with a few stalling to chase me while the others are heading straight for my main base. Thanks to that, I am able to catch and pick off 3 Falcons before the main fleet arrives. But even so, the Falcons combined have too strong of a firepower that I cannot guarantee certain victory. But time is on my side. We are equal on bases and my opponent is just now recovering from his economic wounds. I also have a massive defensive advantage considering how my opponent's main unit is very slow. Attrition thinks the same, so instead of choosing to engage directly, he looks to snipe my natural. But I am completely happy with this because I can just blink in and get all his Falcons, and there is no way Attrition can handle my forces going across the map. As my army approaches the main base, Attrition accepts his defeat and leaves the game, making me the winner of this brief, coincidental best of 3. So there you have it, a close best of 3 where both of us adjusted to what the other player was doing, and each time our adjustments made a big difference in the game outcome. In my opinion, the short game length of Battle Aces is a strength, but a weakness as well. Without any drafting, maps, or unit ban picks, every ranked match has a big chance to feel like a coin flip. In a frenetic, fast-paced game, every choice you make is impactful and irreversible. Each loss feels punishing and your mistakes are glaring, just like a fighting game. But because of this, you get a lot of satisfaction out of playing multiple sets with your opponent. When Attrition got matched with me again, he respected my follow-ups and played a lot safer, giving him the win. In turn, I realized that my Bomber bust wasn't as economically crippling as I had hoped, and took an expansion instead of continuing to force out units. Because the mistakes are so obvious, it is also easier to understand what to do to fix them. I think all players playing Battle Aces should get an experience like this, because it's not very often we get to have the experience of adjusting to players in an RTS game without it taking too much time. In Battle Aces, we were able to play a best of 3 in a total of 11 minutes and 43 seconds. This is less than an average game of StarCraft 2. I believe that by adding a best of 3 mechanic into the game, Battle Aces will gain a unique type of death and provide an experience to players that traditional RTS games weren't able to implement, adapting to the opponent per set. This has the following positive effects. The feeling of I got cheesed by a weird deck is lessened. Instead of feeling helpless against a strange all-in they haven't seen before, players will think about what they can do in the rematch to overcome this cheese. Players will benefit more from creating a more balanced deck, as rematching and beating the same opponent will be faster and beneficial to ranking up than to leave the game, get back into matchmaking queue, and getting a new opponent again. We will also reduce the amount of luck in the game, and consistency in composition and micro will win more often than not. However, I do think that the rematch mechanic should be optional. And by optional, I mean that if one player does not accept the rematch for whatever reason, there will be no rematch. I think that making the rematch optional is better for the following reasons. A big strength of Battle Aces is that a single game is guaranteed to be max of 10 minutes, and sometimes you don't have the time to be playing a drawn out best of 3 depending on an enemy deck. You feel like the matchup wasn't fair, whether the opponent was too strong, or you were too strong, or the decks were just too different to get an even game. Your opponent is running the sickest deck, and you no longer want to play your deck, you want to go play the opponent's deck. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I had a lot of fun this beta, and I hope Battle Aces continues down in the correct direction.